Welcome back to the Mr. Gloat podcast. Today, we are coming to you viewers live from a place called Gray and a place that's gray. Today, guys, we have an exciting announcements of interesting boxing matches, but most importantly, the FIFA World Cup. And to be honest, I'm just going to go through with it as quick as I can before we get to the boxing. Let's take a look on what's been happening in the FIFA World Cup. Unfortunately, yesterday let's get on with the July the 3rd thing. Well, surprisingly, I was surprised. So Egypt did come out defeating Australia after they scored an early goal in the first half. And then the second half, an Australian player scored a goal, which was accidentally on Egypt's fault, but can't say much about that. It states here that they scored it at 55 minutes, known as own goal. Yeah, so mostly own goal. So own goal is just another word for it's in the result for scoring points for the opposition of someone else's. So when a footballer puts a ball into their own net, yeah, mostly an accident. Nothing much. It was just mostly. I'm assuming that maybe the goalie tried to block the ball or something, and then it went into his goal. He didn't have enough to block it out of the way. Who knows? But, of course, Egypt won the match. So, surprisingly. As for Argentina, well, I will have to give credit for Cape Verde. Cape Verde did a good job. I will say, though, even though Cape Verde lost against Argentina, I can't say they tried. Like they scored a goal at 59 minutes. Which was around the time after Messi scored a goal at 29 minutes, so it wasn't much to argue about. And during when they went to the extra minutes for 30 more minutes, their other team did score a 92-minute goal during the first couple minutes of overtime. And then Cape Verde came back scoring a goal 11 minutes later. And then 8 minutes later, another guy named Dene came out of nowhere at 111 minutes of the match to help Argentina score their third goal. And they stopped the last 9 and several minutes left of the game to win. So I'll say, though, at least Cape Verde tried. They took on the toughest country and they did okay. However, after Colombia defeated Ghana in 14 minutes, scoring their one and only goal and made it to the round of 16, unfortunately, the round of 16 did not do too kind to the French people. And when I say French people, God had to screw up one country to give the dominant country an opportunity. On July the 4th, the round of 16 started where fourth place last year's semifinalist Morocco defeated Canada 3-0. Unfortunately, they had nothing into it. Canada just swapped it away. As for Paraguay, well, they lost 1-0 against France, where their captain, star player Mbappé scored a penalty goal at 70 minutes. So, yeah, one French country goes to hell and the other that's dominant goes to heaven. It just doesn't make sense. I really wanted to see that, to be honest, but now we have Morocco and France making it to the final 8. And keep this in mind, just like before, because last 4 years ago, Morocco made it to the semifinals. Remember that. And they're the first African country to do so. But the problem is, when they already made it, their country, France defeated them 4 years ago. So what's going to happen this year? Is France going to score 2 goals as they did last 4 years ago that made it to the finals after they defeated Morocco? What about Argentina? Are Argentina going to do something that might impress some people because they're already made it to the round of 16 and they're taking on Egypt? What happens to that? If they defeat Egypt, where their round of 8 going to be? Switzerland and Colombia, surprisingly, they only made it to the quarterfinals, so that's it for them. So what's going to happen? Are someone going to defeat Argentina, or are we just going to see France and Argentina make it to the semis and then they're going to make it to the finals? It's just a match made in hell. That's why I just feel like watching this. So it does stink to see this from a perspective point, because as of today, Brazil is taking on Norway. England is taking on Mexico. One of the American countries are gone. Today, Mexico's taking on England, as said before, Brazil on Norway, and then tomorrow on the 6th, USA against Belgium, Portugal and Spain, and then the day after tomorrow, on July the 7th, Argentina, Egypt, and Switzerland and Colombia. So that's it. And then on July the 9th, we'll have the match with Morocco and France in Foxborough. But at this moment, it's like there's just nothing to say here because like the tournaments, the matches, the brackets are winding down. Here's the problem. If Belgium defeats USA and England defeats Mexico, that's just going to destroy the entirety of all countries around the world because who wants to watch FIFA World Cup even if they want to watch it next year for the Women's World Cup? And even if America does win or Japan wins or any other country from it, who would even want to support Women's World Cup if the men can't do their job and not take this game seriously? So it kind of stinks to see that France, Argentina, Brazil, they're in the they're in the round of 16 right now, and France are in the round of 8 with Morocco, and I just don't know if Morocco has what it takes. If they didn't have what it takes 4 years ago with the captain of Mbappe with France on their side, there's no way they're going to have what it takes. And if USA loses against Belgium and England defeats Mexico also in the round of 16, like what happened to Canada against Morocco yesterday, then what's the point of us Americans, whether if we're Mexican motherfuckers? Sorry about that. I apologize for saying that. But you get my point. It's like, why should us Americans even want to watch this? We can't take on any of these tough countries, so what's the point? So I just don't like it. I don't like one bit of it, and it's making me my blood boil because it's just a waste of time seeing these dominant countries do better every single 4 years, and we have to wait 20 more years for another upset moment, and I don't think none of these countries will make it to the semifinals. And if they do, if USA does defeat Belgium, and then they'll take on Portugal or Spain on the 10th in Inglewood, and they defeat them, how are they going to do good, whether if they take on France, which we know because they're going to beat Morocco in the quarterfinals. So what's the point? They might not have a chance to even make it to the semifinals. And if they do win in the quarterfinals, how are they going to do against France? France has a tough team of a great captain, and United States does not have a good captain on their side. Maybe they do, but it's just so hard for us to see this because they haven't made it to the round of quarterfinals since 2010. Because that's all I'm seeing here. It's just not going their way, and I just don't see any of this being our path. Because if Canada won yesterday, then we would have seen something different. But at this moment, it just seems like everything is going down to 2 because I just don't see nothing good coming out of this. All I can say is if USA doesn't win tomorrow, if Mexico fails today, then there's just no point on trying to watch any of this. It's just not worth it. Yeah. So anyway, back to more reports here. With everything going on, this is what the boxing world has been giving us. So we're still waiting for updates on Murat Gassiev taking on Tony Yoka for the WBA Heavyweight Championship. Yoka got back injury. You think that the Frenchman might get lucky there. Well, guess what? I guess the country of France has one thing to be disappointed about, and that's Tony Yoka pulling out due to an injury. Even though after everything that he went through a few years ago, he had his opportunity here, and he bummed it all up. It stinks. And now with Frank Warren coming out of the box, he wants to have Joe Joyce fight Gassiev instead of him taking on Soslenkov for his comeback. Joyce hasn't been in boxing for a while, and Gassiev has been on a tear recently. So Gassiev is in a younger age than Joyce, so Joyce, again, good luck if he gets it, but he doesn't have what it takes to win. Like, they're already pointing out that Joe Joyce will never consider retirement at 40, but again, I just don't see nothing going on here, and I just see that it's going to be an utter failure for a disaster for future fights to come. So with all that being said, let's go live on Ring Magazine and see what we have for Ring Magazine as we come to you guys live on post. The YouTube channel of Ring Magazine posts have pointed out information. 41 minutes ago, it's Mexico versus England in the World Cup today, but we have reports of could we be seeing in boxing soon with Ryan Garcia and Conor Benn. Conor Benn, also from England, and Ryan Garcia, somewhat living in America, but they represent him as Mexico. So not only that we do have that underway for the FIFA World Cup, we have Ryan Garcia and Conor Benn in a title fight here. I don't know if we can get that fight going underway. This was published 41 minutes ago. But again, we have to understand the possibilities of throwing in left to right punches and understand what we are looking at when this time comes. By the way, with all this being said, we also have the comeback with Anthony Joshua making his return to the ring with Christian Penga on July the 25th. We're 20 days away from that. We also have Shakur Stevenson taking on with Abdullah Mason. They're already following up after the young fighter still learning the ropes. Because with all this going on, after with a great weight stoppage with Mason going with a great win against Albert Bell just recently this year, it just seems like we might have an opportunity for another legit fight. And like I said before, Jermell Charlo is expecting an all-out war when he travels to Sydney to fight Cohen Mazodir, also on July the 25th. It states report here, quote, "We know that Australians are warriors. They bring us big fight and brutal matches. I'm expecting an all-out war myself." End quote. Well, you can't say that for everyone else there. Everyone has their own point. Well, you see, Jermell Hitman Charlo has been boxing out for like 17 years now. This will be his 18th year if he stays out of trouble while he's out there in Sydney or so on. As long as he keeps his cool and keeps his composure and his life together for the next 20 days, we will get this fight. Or he might pull out due to a controversy. I'm expecting something to happen sooner than later. And I every time we talk about fights and professional boxers, from Gervonta Davis to Jermell Hitman Charlo, you do got to expect something is about to happen anytime now. So we gotta be waking up to this happening sooner than later. And that's the truth. All in all, Abdullah Mason, great victory with him about yesterday ago. And actually, let's talk about the fights that were happening on July the 4th. Technically, with all this being said, the competition has been tough. So the tough competition of Abdullah Mason put on a great performance yesterday, coming out with a win against Albert, with both guys having over 48 victories in their career. Albert scores his 21st victory. It was a great win ever since he was winning by the scorecards from 106 to 103 and two judges 107 to 102, giving him the scores after 11 rounds. He decided to end the fight at 45 seconds, not even getting through the 12th and final round, and ending it without precaution. Bruce Carrington, who was 17-0 at the time, take on Rene Palicio, who was a 19-0-1 fighter, fighting for the WBC World Featherweight Championship. Bruce Carrington took on a hard-fought battle. He managed to score out majority rounds against the Mexican fighter to score his 18th victory, to win out the WBC featherweight title in just his first title defense since his victory last January in Madison Square Garden against Carlos Castro. Now, with all that being said, we also have other multitude fights here. We had regional title fights where Delante Johnson defeated Canadian fighter Christopher Guerrero. Delante Johnson went on to a great dominated 10-round fight to win out a vacant IBF American belt and retaining out with his WBC Continentals and WBO NABO titles. He managed to keep himself together as long as he could. Surprisingly, with all this being said, it seems like that we have other fights going on. We also have a few other Masons on stage where they had a guy named Ibrahim Mason, Abdurrahman Mason, both winning 4-round fights with their 2-0 records. I tried to look up information about these guys, and surprisingly, the Masons are mostly Abdullah. Like, Abdullah Mason is mostly brother with Amir Mason and Adel Mason and Abdullah Mason. So Abdurrahman is the brother of the Mason family here. Good luck with him in the lightweight. Surprisingly, with all it being said, there is other competition here. As for Abraham Mason, trying to look him up, it does say he lives in Cleveland, Ohio, but again, we don't know much of information about him, even though the Masons are from Cleveland, Ohio, so no information says about it, but we're going to assume they are brothers and families in the same exact show. So that's pretty surprising to see all Masons on the show. And of course, let's not talk about it. Jaron Enos defeating Alexander Zayas, great victory for him. We also had a great 10-round fight going on with everything going on from mostly in the toughness of boxing when it comes to undefeated boxers losing their records against a guy with one defeat when you think that you have an opportunity. I did forget to point this out. Brandon Lee, who was a 30-0 fighter, fought for 9 years, gets nothing out of his career, took on Kane Sandoval, and lost a 10-round majority decision on June the 28th. Brandon Lee's career might be coming to an end. The entire show was tough, with Jose Venezuela scoring a second-round victory against Edwin De Los Santos. Omar Trinidad still trying to get to his career as a Trinidad family member for the Trinidads. He's ranked number 7 in the featherweight, and technically we don't know if he might have an opportunity, but he is ranked in the top 10, so we're going to have to try to wait for that moment to come as soon as possible. Unfortunately, Floyd Diaz in the bantamweights scores his first pro loss after dominating five rounds in a 10-round fight against Andres Terran, an 18-0 Mexican fighter. Andres scored an unbelievable upset victory in the 6th round, giving Floyd Diaz his first pro defeat. And after more updates with everything going on into the boxing world, we do have one more other title that would also happen this year, coming straight down the wrong path, and that is Lewis Crocker versus Liam Perot. I really thought Lewis Crocker was going to have his career changing the other way, and maybe he was going to try to not assume everything would be going on in his career. I was assuming that he was going to tell... I really thought that he was going to ignore all the critics and prove that those wins against Paddy Donovan were legit victories for him, even though they were close fights in perspective. Well, Liam Perot from the land down under decided to go an extra step forward and bring in a tough 12-round fight, with all 3 judges giving it 115 to 113, giving the British fighter Lewis Crocker his first pro defeat. And as for the title, Liam Perot lost his IBF World Welterweight Championship. And also that same night, Dempsey McKean comes out with another victory against another Australian fighter, which at this moment is already over with. Luke Madini, another Australian for the IBF Pan-Pacific Cruiserweight, took on a Chinese fighter in the Cruiserweight, who unfortunately, coming to the 3rd round, the Chinese men threw the towel in, protecting their fighter. Another Chinese fighter gone against these Africans, or Australians as well. I heard one of them got lost by an African, but I can't find information about that. But all in all, again, another failure. It's tough enough to say the least about any of this, but the real story does come by our way a lot sooner. And because this is June the 24th, and I didn't know any of this information until right now as I'm talking about this, so I didn't know that fight happened a few weeks ago. So that was mostly my fault. But we also have other fights on the line that were happening result-wise. Kevin Lee Lasanjo scores a 10-round fight against Adrian Cota. A great, good victory for him to get back into competition. and with another great top 10 round fights from all fighters in Japan, and even coming straight down from another competition here, we are also assuming other boxing fights are coming our way. But there's some fights that might not come our way. There might be some that are going our way. We don't know. The real story is, what are we going to see here as the time comes? Here's my point. So with all this being said, we've already had other reports going on. And again, we do have other reports of other matches going on soon. For instance, our 24-year-old veteran professional world championship boxer here, Felix Sturm, who is still at 47 years old, fighting for 24 years during his debut in 2001, with 45 victories, 6 defeats, and 3 draws. He's coming out with a 3-fight winning streak with 2 rematch wins in 2023, and last year he scored a third-round KO. Now he's coming back a full year and a half to take on Granite Stain, a 22-1 fighter, which is a more tough fight than his other fights, so we might as well see what's going to happen. All we can say is this is going to be Felix Sturm's 25th year since 2001 when he debuted in boxing, and this is 2026, so 25 years of boxing. I would like to say call it quits, call it retirement. I would rather want to see him retire right now after this fight or not box at all. But again, it just goes to show you that greedy boxers do like to continue fighting, whether it's for money or for fame, or they just can't stop. We don't know. And by the way, we do have other fights going on our way from the heavyweight, where Chinese boxer Munanari Nuratai, who is actually the Japanese tournament winner last year ago, boxing out all Japanese fighters, is taking on a 10-0 fighter in Osaka, Japan, named Manuel Cosme Sosa from Mexico, who's a 36-year-old fighter ranked number 186 in the heavyweight, while our Chinese fighter is ranked number 242 at 25 years old. So I can't say much about how that fight is going to go on, but I think it just goes to show you July the 11th is going to be one doozy of a show that's going to go on with other multiple fights, and I'm going to be surprised to try to find out about these fights because it's pretty shocking to see all these fights happen at once, and it's pretty interesting. By the way, we also have another female boxer in the division that's going to box on July the 18th, taking on Sanja Fox, who's actually a fighter that has lost against some random woman in 2018 that ended her career with a 2-1 record she had. Defeated former champions of Laura Ramsey and mostly having an opportunity to take on another newcomer in boxing after her 8-year hiatus. Angel Levering, who is a 1-0 fighter, her first victory was in October when she weighed 185 pounds, taking on an 0-2 fighter named Adrian Two Hearts, who is an 0-2 fighter, won her third victory by decision, and now she's fighting in a 4-round fight again in the heavyweight. This might be interesting because we don't know what women's boxing is going to be in the heavyweight. All of the belts are now all major, all exposed, thanks to Clarissa Shields. And we already know that Clarissa Shields is going back to the middleweight to fight Kay Scott to win back her middleweight title. So with all that being said, you got to look at this and see to yourself that this might be an opportunity here. But we better watch out because we also have another fight going on July the 18th. Oh, yeah, and by the way, that match is going to happen in the Four Bears Casino in Lodge, Newtown, North Dakota. The event is going to be called Saturday Night Slugfest, and it's just a bunch of random boxing fights that are just against a bunch of nobodies and random fights that we might not know of, and I don't even know any of these people. The promoter's name is Justin Racine of Racine Promotions. And trying to understand who this guy is, other than it says right here on BoxRec that this is his first ever professional promotional debut. So I wish Justin Racine the best of luck in his career and see what he does. His professional boxing career did not go well. He has a 17-1-3 record with one pro defeat taking on Giovanni Petrorius, who was from South Africa back in the days in the 90s. And surprisingly, that guy passed away in 2021 due to COVID-19. And of course, the guy's career was an Olympic boxer. So that's all you have to know about that guy. But again, I wish this guy best of luck for his first pro debut of his professional promotional. We hope Angel Levering might be the next female boxer. If she defeats Sanja Fox, then this might be a great victory for her. Now we go back to July the 18th, where we're going to California for the Health Sports Park. We have Diego Pacheco taking on Emmanuel Alim for the WBC Silver Super Middleweight and the WBO International titles. Again, this will be another fight for him that he's just going to fight for regional titles because that's all we're going to get here. The Zone better watch out because Emmanuel Alim is ranked number 78. Diego Pacheco's number 4. So we got to be careful on understanding what's going on here. So I would have to say this is just a short cherry pick fight. But with all that being said, I do have an idea that whatever is going to happen, we're going to have to try to understand that there is an opportunity that something will happen. So this is what I see here. I want to see Diego try his best because it seems like everyone is probably holding him back. We don't know. But again, it is possible to understand the severity. With all due respects, it could be possible to understand that. And when it comes to pro boxers and their entire career and resume, I think you have to understand that you have to go for an opportunity sooner than later. But at this moment, Diego Pacheco had the opportunity to fight for a world title. Now it's too late. Canelo Alvarez is coming back, taking on Christian Mbili. Now we are having these opportunities where something should happen sooner than later. So, with all that being said, we do have to talk about another pro boxer that I want to wish good luck in the month of July. And those are 2 female boxers. One from Honolulu, Shara May Patricio, and Madoka Wada, who I hope is female. So let's talk about the Honolulu fighter. So Shara May is a 9-0 fighter, 3 knockout fighter. She's ranked number 18 in the bantamweight, a 23-year-old, young, beautiful Honolulu girl. And she has been having opportunities. She took on Maribel Ramirez in February this year, won the NABF Super Flyweight title. Now she's up for the bantamweight. She takes on another fighter with a 7-4 record where she barely squeaks a split decision. And again, she is now out of her water zone because she's now taking on another fighter who has an 8-7 record. It's a 10-round fight. So I don't think nothing should be a problem there, right? Even though the show is in Pennsylvania for the Fillmore, known as the Independence Bowl, and there's a lot of fighters such as Juan Rivera 5, Ali Ellis, Tyler Williams with an H, Christian Ortiz, Jacqueline McTammany. There's just so many weird names here on this entire card that I'm trying to figure out, should we be paying attention to these fighters? But by the way, the promoter's name is Brian Brian Costello from Blue Corner Promotions. So I don't know if anything is going to change about that, depending on what promoters you're with. But this might be Patricio's opportunity to get a big break, and she might get it. Unfortunately for Madaka Wada, she has to leave her country just so she can fight for the WBA World Title Eliminator. It's not funny. Like, all of these Japanese girls are going out of their country to travel to another country. And the WBA World Title Eliminator is none other than Emma Nesbitt, a 12 1-1 fighter who is a minimum weight fighter at 21 years old, so a young New Zealand fighter fighting in New Zealand, and this fight is in New Zealand, so it's her hometown, and she's taking on the Japanese fighter who is 10 years older than her and might be more experienced and dangerous than her. But again, in the environment that Madaka Wada is doing, she's leaving her country. Now, don't get me wrong. With all due respects, Madoka Wada has traveled out in time from her career. Like in 2012, she did actually leave to go to a tournament for the International Invitational Tournament at one point. Let me look up information here. She went to Taiwan in 2012 to fight once. In 2014, in November, she went to South Korea for the AIBA World Championship preliminaries, where she would lose, I'm assuming, in the finals. She would enter in places like Indonesia, China, Kazakhstan in 2015-16, where she lost fights and not won. She went to India in 2018 to win fights and lost. She entered the IBA Women's World Championship in Turkey, where she won but lost in preliminaries in her second fight. And, of course, she was going back to Japan, where she would started winning fights. And it's ridiculous. She would still travel on, going to India in 2023. And, of course, that would be it. She would never travel again. And it's been 3 years since she was out of the country. So this isn't the first time she's left Japan. But again, some of her competition fights that she lost in her career, with 9 amateur fights, a lot happened earlier in her career, 7. So she only lost 8 amateur fights out of 9 of those out of the country of Japan. Her last amateur defeat was actually in Japan. And then she turned pro a year later. So, yeah, I can't say for certain of how crazy this is that Madaka Wada might not have an opportunity to get nothing done here. So I am worried that something might not come our way here, because this is going to be another failure for Japan. But again, it just makes you wonder, can we just give them a break, for crying out loud? Because Madoka Wada might have a chance to get to the rankings here, and she is. She has the opportunity. She has knockout power. Like Madoka Wada has 5 knockouts in her 6 career wins, and her third fight was a decision. Yeah, and Emma Nesbitt has 9 knockouts in her career. So that might just show you that this is going to be a bloody fight. That's like, guys, Madoka Wada has to do something a lot sooner, because this is not the opportunity to do anything other than just fight. So I really don't know what to say about this. Crazy. All right, so back with more updates here on the boxing world. With everything going on here in professional boxing, we all have to understand what we are getting ourselves into, while with only a few weeks away from going on with everything happening here. This right here might give us opportunities. We have reports that Gervonta Tank Davis is now coming back, and even though he is the championship of recess, we also have other moments happening here in the boxing world as we speak. But again, we can't really put this together as soon as we can. Again, we don't know if the Garcia and Conor Benn is going to happen on September the 12th, but again, I can't really say much about that. Here's the thing. We don't got much of world title fights going on right now. We just talked about everything for July the 4th. So what I'm going to do this month is going to be different. Today, I'm going to record maybe a few more short videos right now just to get stuff done here. After the end of this week is over on the 11th of July, I will record 5 straight episodes from Monday the 13th to Friday the 17th. We are going to talk about the titles, the road to the undisputed Atomweight Championship. We're going to talk about the IBF, the WBA, the WBO, and the WBC. And the final episode will just be all of the random titles, all packaged up at once. There might be repeats I'll talk about in some of the episodes, and even though I am thinking about recording those episodes as 40-minute episodes, because I always think of it being in 40 minutes is like similar to an hour with commercial breaks in them. So we're going to get that underway as best we could. Again, with one hand can seal the deal. So I have a good idea. Something could happen here as soon as possible. So consider this episode is just short. I'm going to make this episode short just for the heck of it after my last episode. Because this week, I'm just going to start off short, talk slow to get things going here. We'll just literally talk slow from this one because there's nothing here we can talk about. There's no other title fights going on. And again, like I said before, the Ring Magazine has already put up some stacked boxing fights that are happening in July. Unfortunately, we already got through the WBO lightweight and the WBC featherweight title fights just yesterday. So what's next? Well, of course, with the Ring Magazine going on here, we do got the WBO bantamweight champions, super flyweight champions, for the vacant WBO belt of Kenshiro Taraji taking on Israel Gonzalez. This will be Kenshiro Taraji's chance to become a 3-weight class champion, and he might opportunity get to himself a lot sooner for other titles. Who knows? Who knows? We also have Tyson Fury, as said before, because Tyson Fury is taking on Marius Watch on 24th of July, 4 days after Kenshiro's win against Israel for the super flyweight title, if he does win. Anthony Joshua, Kristen Panga, the 25th. Again, the 25th as well, Earl Spence and Tim Tsuzu, and Edgar Berlanga and Stephen Butler on the 26th. Same day for Richard Hitchenson's and Ricardo Salas. So, yeah, nothing crazy is going to happen in the entirety. So, I'm just going to record, after this episode's over, I'm going to record a couple other short episodes of random stuff that might not be talked about very much and maybe not entertaining to the viewers because I have to wait 2 weeks for the next title fight to go on and I'm out of ideas as I'm talking right now about this video. So before we end this episode with only 6 or so minutes left, I will say though, this isn't my favorite episode I've talked about. I do regret some of the stuff about the FIFA World Cup thing. So at this moment, this video is just throwing the barrel here, so I'm not really satisfied with making this video. But again, I am trying to put out new updates and understand what we have to talk about. But it is hard when you're trying to find updates of other things going on in the world of sports. So there is reasons that we do have to talk about other things in life as we speak. So that's what I'm going to do for the next episode. The next episode will be sports. We will get into other games and other sports going on in the world as we speak and see what we have in store. So with only 5 more minutes left of this episode going on, this is going to be my final thought for the entirety. What is my what's going to be my opportunity? So well, you know what? I'll save it for some other time. I'll save it for later. But anyway, okay, what we do have to talk about? We have 5 more minutes left of this episode, so we might as well. You know what? Before we do this, let's go back to the FIFA World Cup, because I don't know if Wikipedia actually released new information. What about Norway and Brazil? Did Norway and Brazil already have their match right now? Well, let me refresh my Wikipedia page and see what we found. Whoa! Norway defeated Brazil. Damn. And Norway star hero Haaland, 2 A's, spelled Haaland, Haaland, if that's how you spell the guy's name, scored their first goal at 79 minutes, and at 90 minutes, they scored their second goal with him, scoring 2 goals in once. Unfortunately, Brazil was scoring nothing during the final moments, but for some reason, they had a record of over 10 penalty minutes because they were already past the 90-minute mark, but they actually had 10 more minutes of 10 more minutes of throwing out yellow cards or something. How many penalties do all these players get from 90 minutes right now to give them extra time? Because this is ridiculous. It says right here that Neymar, now the final Brazilian to score a goal in the World Cup this year, scored a goal at 90 plus 10 minutes in a penalty score. Again, they already lost 2-1, so Norway defeats Brazil, which makes me happy because of it. I know Brazil isn't going to be happy, but you know what? If Argentina is going, let's be honest, if France and Argentina are going to make it to the quarterfinals and get their stuff in, it's better for Brazil not to. So I can't say much about that. I just can't. By the way, what about reports on England and Mexico? Because that game should be happening right now, as we're just past like 23 minutes. So the game kickoff at 20 minutes. So has the game already started? 1 hour and 36 minutes and 47 seconds until that game starts at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Okay, so England versus Mexico. All I can say that is those two countries might not have much to talk about. And by the way, speaking about England, here's something I can say about England. Just to let you people know, even though England is part of the United Kingdom, but the thing is, it does say right here that England are part of the UEFA of Europe. But again, in all honesty, England has been having problems in their career for the worldwide of sports, because even though the World Cup hasn't been too kind to them, considering they actually became World Cup champions in 1966, so I guess I'm going to have to ignore that, because I thought England never made it to the semifinals because I thought British people were not there. But no, I guess I was wrong. I have to zip my mouth for apologizing for that, because I thought England never became World Cup champions, but I just looked it up. Crazy. Okay, well, there you go. Looks like Mexico is going to lose against England after 60 years when... By the way, what's the best finish they ever made in? Okay, so it says right here that Mexico has made it to the quarterfinals since 1970 and again in 1986. So if they win this will be their first time in about 40 years since they made it to the quarterfinals, which that would be really amazing. And what really upsets me is that they have been world champions. They've been world champs from being Confederation champs in 99, runner-up in Copa Americas from 93 to 2001. They were the CONCACAF Cup 2015 champions. They became not once, twice, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13-time CONCACAF Championship Gold Cup champions of 1965, 2 last year ago in 2025 better than America, better than the USA. So, yeah, that right there says a lot. And they were CONCACAF National League champions in 2025 last year ago. So, at this moment, if Mexico actually fails to defeat England as we speak, that's just going to be utter embarrassment. But we're just going to have to wait and see what happens. But all we know is that game's going to happen on next time tomorrow. I will record the next episode, or you know what? Nah, never mind. We'll get to it. Next time, I'm going to talk about other sports and see what we have for next time. So with that being said, we'll see you for another 40 to 45 minute episode next time.